Hey everybody, Fed Ed here. In this video I want to share something that's helped me and I hope will you as well. Anybody out there that's either a passive or active investor, maybe just dabble a little bit or considering it. It's also got applications outside of that, so for what it's worth, I think that there might be something worth listening to because it can, you can use it in different ways. Essentially, I call it my 10 trading commandments. And I came up with this about 2017, 2018, and it was around when there was the last big crypto boom bubble that happened. And before it, I dabbled different type of assets as well, metals, stocks, a few other things, but collectibles. Essentially, and crypto was such a different just a totally different class of thing, and it didn't behave, and being able to trade it constantly on a day-to-day basis. And this was still when it wasn't really regulated, and then I couldn't really buy it in the US, so I had to use a VPN and all this other stuff, and so let's not go into that. But the point is, I wanted to make something, codify it, that I could look at every day and remind myself, oh, don't make that mistake again, or oh, this worked for you. So it's something that I literally have another whiteboard like this, except it's magnetic and up against the fireplace, that I look at pretty much every single day. And I love this thing. I mean, literally, I keep little notes that I give if someone asks me that I meet along the way and work whatever out on the street. I'll be like, this, and hey, they'll ask me how do I start, what would you recommend, what would you consider. I'm like, first you gotta start by researching and figure out what you want right for you, but this will definitely help. And what it comes down to is to start off, to understand it, everything before we get into it, number one is personal time. Because without personal time, you can't apply the rest of this. Because as long as you're a wage slave and you work for somebody else and you don't come first, and essentially, there's only a certain amount of hours in a day and amount of money that you can make for those hours. And you cap yourself off. If you don't let your money work for you, you're always going to be in this infinite little, running circle like a gerbil. And it's pointless. And I realized this back in high school. I was like, hell no, I'm not going to be putting up with all that shit. So, I mean, and I've never looked back on it, and thank God I did what I did. But that's personal time number one. It'll allow you to do everything else. And remember, you are the most important one at the business. And even though you work for somebody else, you still come first. You and your family. Don't forget that. They might try to drive into your mind whatever else, but always remember that. Number two, reinvest 3/5 of your profits. And there's different, I said around because some people like half. I like 3/5 because it allows me to keep actively going with the majority of it, and that I could also break into different forms, of course, and essentially apply it differently, but also still have money for the tax man at the end of the year. Keep it for taxes. You never know. At least you can still invest it in something, be it S&P or mutual fund or something like certain metals, or there's different ways as well, property. But what you have to know is you want to slowly decrease your risk with that other 2/5, because when you got to pay for it, when the end of the year comes around and you got to account for it, you want to have that money, and hopefully you want to have made some little more money on top of that money, but you want to at least be at about the same, or if you lost a little, sometimes it happens, but you still want to, some years you'll make up for it, others not. What it goes down to is and then it takes you to number three. Grow multiple assets, and this comes in many forms. It could be stocks, crypto, housing, cars, metals, commodities, whatever. You can stones. There's so many different kinds, but collectibles. But that's what you want to do. So you want to kind of spread the wealth around, so that if a specific portion of the market takes a hit, you have a variety of things that you can basically draw on, and hopefully some of them are in the positive, so that when you take out, you keep basically living off of all your profits. And it basically goes back to the old adage, buy, borrow, die, which is what pretty much all the big to-do people that actually run this world do. And it's what y'all have to play the game doing too. So the pillars here, the 3 pillars, you got to start with number 1, but once you reach number 3, you can keep going around and do whatever you want. But essentially, this will take you to the 10 trading commandments. And I pretty much these progress in terms of what I think is important. Some of them can go back and forth a little bit, but for the most part, I think they build on each other. And essentially, to start off, we have, thou shalt not make emotional decisions. This is number 1 for a reason. And when a good quote that is nice to remember, and I'm going to mention one quote for each of these, and although there's a variety of quotes that could be said, of course, I'm just picking one that I think fits the description well. But essentially, John Maynard Keynes said, "When the facts change, I change. What do you do, my friend?" And that's important. There's also another one like, you can make bulls make money, bears make money, pigs get slaughtered. And there's so many different ways about it, but you just got to know when to get in and out, and you just can't be blind. But essentially, going to number 2, thou shalt not blindly follow anyone. And this is important, especially nowadays, where people don't really have much of a choice, and they're just fed so much narrative on the media, and they're taught to literally be conditioned that way from schooling, which that's a whole nother issue in of itself that I'm going to get into sometime. But essentially, you have to know what's best for you. Don't let other people guide you. Don't be a blind bull. And you have to have presence of mind and spirit. And what it comes, a good quote for that is Sun Tzu, and I love Sun Tzu. It was one of my first, The Art of War was one of the first books I ever actually printed for free at school, because they didn't control how much we had to print, and I never had to pay for it. But never mind, that's neither here nor there. He who knows when he can fight and when he cannot will be victorious. You have to pick your battles. It's basic. Number 3, thou shalt not use 100% margin debt. It also kind of goes to the idea of another John Maynard Keynes quote, but the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain liquid. And there's some different ones too about not betting with the chips that you don't have, or you still want to keep playing essentially. But it's important. Number 4, remember your goals and be consistent. That is one of the biggest ones. Yes, you have to be able to change in a market, be like water, flow, crash, but there's an important quote that so many people in the investment community, there's different takes on it where you get it from, but it's Baron Rothschild, Nathan Rothschild quote. But I never buy at the bottom, and I always sell too soon. And there's another, I think there was a quote on the BBC or something, someone asked him, and he's like, I always get out a bit early. And so, yeah, it's important. And don't forget the rotten children and rotten fellers of the world. Those, they definitely made what we're living in right now, and they still control a lot of it from behind the shadows. So, just know what your goals are and to be consistent, because literally you can change the world. Number 5, honor family, friends, and others always. And this is important because some people just get greedy, they lose track of things, or they just completely fall into complacency. And it's a good quote is Benjamin Franklin, an investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. And that is 100% true. Knowledge is power. And again, if you don't have personal time, you'll never have the knowledge, because people will tell you what they want you to believe. People understand this, please. Oh, man. Number 6, thou shalt not forget limit and stop orders. This is an important one, but it can be a dangerous one too. This is why it's important to keep an active eye on your investments. It's also important, especially if you just let it go, but you want to always end up a little bit more ahead than you are, to just guarantee that you always take a small profit, then something like this might be important. But there are situations where the market just fluctuates totally, and it short squeezes basically, and they'll push people out of their positions, and a lot of it is done through, well, margin, and also, you know, options like calls and puts that just trade hundreds to one. But so, like, and then when you're talking people with infinite pockets like hedge funds, they'll squeeze people out of their positions. So it's something to be careful of, but if you're actively following your investments, it's something that can do you a lot of good. At least you should always use limit orders when you're purchasing, at the very least, even if you are a buy and hold type of person, but, you know, still be aware of it. Essentially, there's a, what is it, Bruce Kovner quote, I know where I'm getting in before I know where I'm getting out before I get in. And usually when, at least in my case, I try to look, and there's a variety of ways of doing this, but I try to figure out what's a probable point that it's going to be, where do I want to get in, where do I want to get out. That's just kind of basic, at least to me. I think others should too. Number 7, thou shalt not hold past parabolic peaks. And a good quote for that is, it's not whether you're right or where you're wrong that it's important. It's how much money you make when you're right or lose when you're wrong. George Soros said that one. And there's, again, important. When you see things going up like this is when you strongly consider getting out. And when you see it like this is when you strongly consider possibly getting back in after a reversal, because you don't want to catch a falling knife. But again, learn how to trade between like the 200-day moving average and the 52-week lows. And I mean, there's lots of other, if you're a trader, this is especially more important. But this is also for people that think that they're going to buy and hold. So many times in my life, my biggest regrets where I lost, well, I didn't lose, I still made some, but I could have cashed out life-changing amounts of money, was because I kept going on the euphoria and I didn't listen to myself where I wanted to use my limit and stop order, and I ignored it. So just know that, and the market is this way. It's hard to, and people, you know, they'll keep you going when you're on the high, and then they'll chastise you for getting out when it's on the low. This is human nature. Number 8, thou shalt not forget to take some profits. Very important. And there's a Jesse Livermore quote. They say you never grow poor by taking profits, but you'll never grow rich without taking a 4-point profit in a bull market. And that's true too. You got to be able to, you know when to win some, know when to lose some. There's times to bet, there's times to hold, there's times to go fishing. I think that's also a Jesse Livermore quote, something similar to that. Number 9, thou shalt not liquidate all at once. Several times in my life I've done that, and sometimes there's good reasons, and overall though, this is something that's bitten me, and I've looked back after a few years and I really regret it, especially if it's something that I sold hoping to get back in, forgot about, and then when I look at it again or remember again later, it's a little late. Number 10, thou shalt not over or under diversify. And that's important too, because don't focus on making money, just focus on protecting what you have. And that was a Paul Tudor quote. And this becomes especially more important as you grow older, because, well, you're retired, you want to have something for yourself to live out your years and enjoy them, of course, that's the most important, but also have things for a legacy for your family, or, you know, your estate, and there's other things. But these are all important things that have been important for me, at least, that I wanted to codify. Hopefully might be helpful to y'all out there. I, again, look at this when I'm questioning sometimes my own decisions, and usually this brings me back to a more level-headed place. But either way, thank you for sharing this time here with me, and I hope y'all enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and best of luck trading.